The alien woman returns after years to reunite with the human she couldn't forget. An HFY Sci-Fi tale. The first time Kyra laid eyes on Captain Elias Mercer, she was an infiltrator assigned to observe humanity's potential as allies, or threats. Her species, the Altari, were masters of subterfuge, able to alter their appearance to blend seamlessly into other societies. But as she walked among the humans, something unexpected happened. She began to feel. Elias had been her handler during her fabricated assignment aboard the Stellar Horizon. He thought she was an Altarian diplomat seeking cultural exchange. Kyra had admired his strength, his resolve, and his maddening tendency to put himself in harm's way for the sake of his crew. What she hadn't expected was the way her carefully constructed facade crumbled every time he looked at her with genuine warmth. He treated her not as an alien ambassador, but as a person. When her mission ended, duty called her back to Altari Prime. She vanished, leaving behind only a cryptic farewell. The bond she had formed with Elias lingered, an ache she couldn't ignore despite the years and the light years that separated them. Now, a decade later, Kyra stood on the bridge of the Celestial Vanguard, her true Altarian form barely resembling the human disguise Elias once knew. Her silver-hued skin glimmered faintly in the low light, and her elongated eyes scanned the console displaying the coordinates of the latest Terran deep space colony. "I shouldn't be doing this," she muttered, her voice a mix of resolve and doubt. The Altarian High Council would not approve of her unsanctioned visit to human territory, but Kyra was no longer their pawn. Her ship entered orbit around Helios 4, the colony where Elias had settled after leaving the Navy. Kyra's hearts, both of them, beat erratically. She transmitted her landing request, her voice deliberately altered to avoid immediate recognition. As the clearance came through, she descended to the planet's surface. The settlement was bustling with life. Humans moved about, tending to crops, repairing machinery, and raising families. Kyra felt like an outsider again, but this time, she didn't need to wear a mask. She found him in the colony's engineering bay. Elias was older now, his hair streaked with silver, laugh lines deepened, but his posture was as steady as ever. He was fixing a power relay, his sleeves rolled up, revealing scars that hadn't been there before. Kyra stepped into the room, her presence unnoticed until she spoke. "Still fixing things, Captain?" Elias froze. Slowly, he turned, his eyes narrowing at first in confusion, then widening in recognition. "Kyra?" His voice was barely a whisper. "It's me," she said, her throat tight. "The real me." For a moment, neither of them moved. Then, Elias set down his tools and took a cautious step forward. You just disappeared, I thought." He trailed off, his expression a mix of anger and relief. "I had no choice," Kyra said, her voice trembling. "I lied to you about who I was, but I never lied about what I felt." Elias studied her, his gaze searching for the woman he'd once known beneath the alien exterior. "Why now? Why come back after all this time?" "Because I couldn't forget you," she admitted. "I tried, I buried myself in duty, in missions, in the expectations of my people, but no matter how far I went, I kept thinking about you, about us." Elias let out a breath, the tension in his shoulders easing. "You've got some nerve showing up after all these years, saying things like that." Kyra's heart sank, but she nodded. "I understand if you hate me, I wouldn't blame you." He chuckled softly, shaking his head. "Hate you? No, but I spent years wondering if I was crazy for believing there was something real between us." "There was," she said, stepping closer. "There still is, if you'll let me prove it." Ilyas met her gaze, his expression softening. "You're 10 years late, Kyra, but maybe, just maybe, we can start again." She smiled, a rare, genuine smile that illuminated her alien features. "I'd like that." As they stood there, two souls from different worlds bound by an unshakable connection, the universe seemed just a little smaller. Elias reached for a cloth to wipe his hands, his fingers trembling slightly as he tried to process everything. Kyra was here, standing in front of him, not a memory, not a dream, but real and tangible. Her shimmering silver skin caught the light of the bay, and her elongated eyes, though unfamiliar, held the same warmth he remembered. "Come with me," he said abruptly, gesturing toward the exit. "We can't talk here, too many ears." Kyra followed him without hesitation, her steps light but purposeful. They walked through the winding corridors of the settlement, the hum of generators and the faint chatter of colonists fading as they reached the edge of the colony. Elias led her to a small observation outpost perched on a rocky bluff overlooking the planet's twin suns. The silence between them was heavy, laden with years of unspoken words. Elias finally turned to her. "You have no idea what it was like after you left. I tried to move on, but you left this void, Kyra, and I didn't even know who you really were." "I know," she said softly, "and I don't expect forgiveness, but I couldn't stay away any longer." She hesitated, her elongated fingers intertwining. "Elias, My people taught me to suppress emotions, to view connections as weaknesses. You showed me that they're a strength, that love, her voice broke slightly, a ripple in her otherwise composed demeanor, is worth fighting for. Elias looked at her for a long moment. What happens now? Are you just passing through? Or are you planning to stay? I want to stay, she said without hesitation. If you'll have me. I've left the Altarian hierarchy. I'm free now, free to make my own choices. And your people? Won't they come after you? They might, Kyra admitted, but I'm willing to take that risk. Elias exhaled deeply, running a hand through his graying hair. You've always been bold, reckless, even, but you're not the only one who's changed. This isn't the Navy, Kyra. I've got responsibilities here, people rely on me. I don't want to take you away from that, Kyra said. I just want to be a part of it, to be a part of your life, in whatever way you'll let me. Elias leaned against the railing, gazing at the horizon where the twin suns cast a golden glow across the rocky plains. It won't be easy, humans and Altarians, we're still figuring out how to coexist. There'll be judgment, questions, maybe worse. Kyra stepped closer, her voice firm. I've faced wars, espionage, and the wrath of my own people. I'm not afraid of a few questions. He turned to her, a small, reluctant smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. You always were stubborn. And you always admired that about me, she replied, her tone teasing but her expression earnest. Elias chuckled, shaking his head. You're not wrong. For the first time in years, he felt a flicker of something he'd buried, hope. Tentatively, he reached out, his hand hovering just inches from hers. Kyra closed the distance, her fingers intertwining with his. Her touch was cool, unfamiliar, but the emotion behind it was unmistakable. All right, he said finally, his voice steady. If you're staying, then we'll figure it out, together. Kyra's smile widened, her elongated eyes shimmering with unshed tears. Together. As the suns dipped below the horizon, casting the planet in hues of violet and gold, they stood side by side, two beings from different worlds, united by a bond that had defied time, space, and duty. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them as one. The following weeks were a whirlwind of adjustments, explanations, and cautious optimism. Word of Kyra's presence spread quickly through the colony, sparking curiosity, suspicion, and a fair amount of debate among the settlers. She's an Altarian? One colonist whispered to another in the mess hall. I've heard they're spies, can we trust her? But Elias had anticipated this. As the colony's unofficial leader, he took it upon himself to address the concerns head-on. He organized a gathering in the main hall, where Kyra stood beside him, her presence commanding yet vulnerable. This is Kyra, Elias began, his voice steady. She's here because she chose to be, and while she might not be human, she's more than proven herself to me. She's a friend, and now, a part of this community. Kyra stepped forward, her gaze sweeping the crowd. I understand your hesitation. I've spent most of my life hiding who I am, even from people I cared about, but I'm here now, not as an infiltrator or emissary, but as someone who wants to contribute, to learn, and to help. A ripple of murmurs passed through the crowd, some faces softened, others remained skeptical. One older mechanic, Talia, raised her hand. All right, Kyra, if you're staying, what can you do? We've got no room for freeloaders. Kyra smiled faintly. I wouldn't expect anything less. I have experience with advanced technology, including energy systems and terraforming. Show me where I'm needed, and I'll get to work. Talia nodded, apparently satisfied, and the tension in the room began to ease. Over the next few months, Kyra proved herself in ways that even the skeptics couldn't ignore. She repaired a failing atmospheric regulator, using Altarian techniques to enhance its efficiency. She introduced agricultural methods that boosted crop yields, drawing from her people's deep understanding of ecosystem management. And when a rogue meteor storm threatened the colony, she piloted an old defense drone to intercept the debris, saving countless lives. Despite her contributions, there were still moments of friction. A group of colonists, wary of her alien origins, avoided her or whispered behind her back. But Kyra faced it all with quiet resilience, her focus always on building bridges rather than burning them. Through it all, Elias remained her anchor. They worked side by side during the day and spent long evenings together, talking about everything they had missed in the years apart. He told her about the struggles of starting the colony, the sacrifices he had made, and the friendships he had forged. She, in turn, shared stories of her missions, the struggles of breaking free from Altarian control, and the moments she had thought of him, even when it felt impossible. One evening, as they sat under the twin moons, Elias turned to her. You know, you're starting to win them over. Kyra tilted her head, her expression skeptical. I think starting is generous. There's still plenty who would rather see me leave. They'll come around, Elias said with a grin. They don't know you like I do. Her gaze softened. And what about you, Elias? Do you think you know me? He leaned closer, his voice dropping to a near whisper. Better than I did 10 years ago, and I'd like to keep learning. Kyra's heart swelled, and for the first time in her life, she felt truly at peace. But peace was fragile. It wasn't long before the Altarian High Council became aware of her presence on Helios 4. One morning, an Altarian ship appeared in orbit, its sleek design unmistakable against the stars, a message broadcast to the colony, its tone both formal and menacing. This is Envoy Relan of the Altarian High Council. We know you harbor Kyra of the Vanguard. She is a fugitive. Surrender her immediately, and no harm will come to your settlement. The message sent a wave of fear through the colony. Kyra, standing beside Elias in the command center, felt a chill run through her. She had known this day might come, but she hadn't expected it so soon. What do we do? One of the settlers asked, panic evident in their voice. Elias squared his shoulders, his jaw set. We protect our own. Kyra shook her head. I won't let them harm the colony because of me. I'll go. Elias grabbed her arm, his grip firm. No, you're part of this colony now. We fight for each other. Kyra's gaze met his, a mixture of fear and gratitude in her eyes. Elias, they're more advanced than you can imagine. You can't fight them. Then we'll outthink them, he said, together. And so, as the Altarian ship loomed above, Kyra and Elias prepared for a confrontation that would test not only their ingenuity but the strength of the bond they had fought so hard to rebuild.